Right, so welcome to the new year, folks. If you want to sponsor MicroPython, there's the link. Go ahead and do so. Please be careful because GitHub have just dropped PayPal as a payment authority. So if you're like me, you're paying for MicroPython sponsorship with PayPal. It'd be nice if all the funds didn't go out the day that GitHub turns it off, so you can go in there and change it to credit card. So go check that out. Also very interesting, they didn't explain why. So probably just got sick of the way they've been blocking people or their fees. I'm not sure yet. Now the agenda, it's halfway through it. Barry, again, thanks for the videos, and thanks again. I'm hoping you're going to do it again. Quickly through, just want to mention that the packaging system has been in place for the run out. MIP, Jim gave a great talk on it, which got the link there. Still seeing plenty of questions about this, plenty of confusion out there. So I just probably will reiterate this a couple of times. UPIP's no longer recommended, so we don't want to use the IPI packaging system for MicroPython. We've got an alternative now. It's called MIP. It works better for us. It works well in a low memory environment. It's nice that any of the MicroPython lib libraries are actually the bytecode is installed, so it's a little bit faster and lower memory. It's pretty easy for third-party authors to access. So if you want to have your own third-party library on GitHub, that's fine. You can easily make that available to MIP. And the official docs are actually really well written. Jim's done a great job of that. So it explains all of this. I'm just trying to get the word out there, and you'll probably get sick of me talking about it, but there's at least a couple of requests a week, and people are asking, why doesn't pip work anymore properly? Why doesn't this library work? So I think we'll just have to deal with that for a little while. Some good news, finally, that the Raspberry Pi Pico W will have BLE support soon, probably by the end of this month. Alistair Allen shared this information. He works for Raspberry Pi. It'll be in the C API, hopefully very soon. I don't know, Damien, if you've got any insight into how long it'll be after we'll get it in MicroPython.
We should get it immediately, hopefully.
Cool.
Yep. Like as soon as the SDK has it, we should have it. Yep.
Yeah, great. My new hardware, it's been 2 months, so there's a bit that I've bought. And all, for the folks that are here, you can all take a look at this stuff. We'll talk about this a little bit later, but can you see that? Yeah, okay. We're looking at the Pine OX64, which is based around a new, not that new, but it's a Buffalo Labs 808 processor. It's a super impressive, I think this processor is a sign of things to come, right? It's like 3 cores in the system, and we'll talk about this a bit more, but this device has Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and Zigbee, buckets of RAM, 64 meg of RAM, 700K of onboard RAM as well. So that 64 meg is PS RAM. And this one has 2 meg of flash, but you can get them in 16 meg variants as well. That's $6 US. Pretty amazing. Yeah. Very similar to it is the Cyped makes range. The M1S there, the second one, is actually the same processor. And they bundle it with 16 meg of flash, and they break out a few more things at $16. Right? So it's quite an interesting processor. Buffalo Labs, who make the processor, have an open source API. Cyped and Pine have both forked that and added their own bits and pieces that they're also trying to push upstream. So it's good to see all this open source development. Expecting that we'll get a MicroPython 12 for that at some point. Very interesting processor though. Cyped have also got the BLE 702, which is a slightly lower spec one, but $6 for this little guy. So yeah, really cheap, really powerful little processors. Speaking of powerful processors, I got my hands on one of the ESP32 S3 DevKit C in32 R8Vs. Now, there's no test on that, but it's a bit of a mouthful. These boards actually come in 8 different variants of flash and RAM and so on. But this thing's got 32 meg of flash and 8 meg of PS RAM on board. So it's quite a powerful little unit. A quick diversion is that, maybe we'll talk about this later, but so some of the ports have the concept of a board variant where you can choose to build a board and then choose a particular variant from that board where it might have like some of the RP2 boards, they're external flashes, so they can come in 4 meg, or 8 meg variants. So the RP2 and the STM32 port both support this concept of a variant, where you supply a board name and the variant you want for that board. We need to get that in for the ESP32 as well. So with this board, that's kind of on my radar. Unless someone gets to it first, which would be great. But just letting you know that that variant concept will percolate throughout all the ports as well eventually with a bit of luck. M5 Stack, if you're going to buy something from M5 Stack, you might as well buy a bunch of things. The main thing that was pushing me for this was the Atom S3, which is one of those little Atom format devices. There's a few of these now. You can see another one, just got a regular ESP32, which is a bit thinner. This one's pretty nice because it's got the ESP32 S3, it's got the 0.85 LCD, and they still retain the button. So there's a button built into the display. They're $15. There's a few other things that were cool here. I don't know what to do with this one yet, but I really liked it. It's just a bunch of rotary encoders. And this particular one, they put like a small micro in there, so you're just creating I2C for the status of the rotary encoders. What else? We could probably talk about that one. Yeah, $12 or $13. It was quite cheap. Yeah. They've also got like a USB-A variant of their chips. So it's got an ESP32 in it. Just plug it in. They had another one which has one of these atoms, but it has like a shield or whatever that can drive LED strips. So that's kind of like the 12-volt LED strips. So it's kind of useful for that sort of thing. Anyway, M5 Stack make a whole bunch of things. They just keep churning out stuff that I'm a sucker for, yeah, basically. Person sensor, I think this is one of the more interesting things I've heard of recently. It's a tiny little board, and it's got machine learning on board. So there's a little micro and a little camera on this thing, and it can detect when someone's in the field of view of the camera when they're there, and if they're looking at it. It can also be trained, so you can have, I think it's something like 8 people that it can detect. So it can detect me or Andrew or Oliver or whoever else. And it does it in a way that's fairly secure. So you train it, and then it's got an I2C API, and you don't get information about the person. You just get like a number saying, I've identified someone that looks like person number 1, person number 2. So you don't get actually any camera data off of this device, which is quite neat. These things are $10 US. Made by an ex-Googler. He started this company called Useful Sensors. Looks like he's going to do a few interesting things, and I thought that was pretty fascinating. I don't have the right cable for it at the moment, so I haven't tried it yet. I'm really keen to don't know what to do.
They work well. You've got to have the little Spark Fun interface.
Yeah, so I bought that through SparkFun. I missed out in the first round, but they came in pretty quick after. As far as I'm aware, it's only human.
You can also get them through Core.
Yeah, Core started stocking them after I put the order in there, which is good. I think this is the final thing, but yeah, we must started selling these 8x8 NeoPixel devices, pretty impressive little things for $4.25. They pair really well with the Pico, which we talked about last time, because it's a really small little package with a nice little bunch of LEDs on it. And I'll also supply a link. I've also found some like low profile headers, which are just the right size to fit that down as low as possible without hitting any of the components on the Pico. So they're kind of neat too. Moving right along. Oh, it's the Pico from last time. I would use the BLA 808. Probably talked about that enough, but yeah, something to look out for. And address tons of memory as well. You had something.
One thing worth noting about the
Sounds like you've got something.
actually, it's not overly interesting, but a minor complication with the UPIP versus MIP thing is that the current official release, 19.1, is still only has UPIP in it. So you have to wait for their next release or get a nightly build to get access to MIP. So that'll be another reason why it's still getting service requests for UPIP. But yeah, people on the latest nightly downloads should have access to MIP already. It just works great.
Yeah. No stress, Damien.
Yeah.
We're not even just
No,
released whenever you.
Because it's a little gotcha that I thought worth adding to the.
Yeah.
Let's promote it.
In the vein of interesting hardware, the WCH, it's got some too much of a mouthful. These Chinese chip manufacturers really struggle with fun and exciting names for their boards. But this should be covered a couple months ago, but we're also seeing a lot more support for this out in the wild. There is a PR to add a MicroPython port for this, which is actually in pretty good shape for a starting port. The main thing I'm interested in this one is that it's got 8 UARTs. And again, these are dirt cheap. I think the development kit's $14 or something. Yeah, really nice. Espressif news. They're not finally, the P4 was announced. That was a bit of a surprise, I think, to some people. They're kind of entering into a different space. So we're familiar, most of us are familiar with the ESP32 range. But this one's different. It's very powerful. It's a dual core RISC-V processor, and it's also got a ULP RISC-V sitting there as well. But it has bags of performance features, including accelerated machine learning features. It's got MIPI support for displays. It's really quite powerful. But strangely, it doesn't have a radio. So I think it's caught everyone with a bit of surprise because Espressif is sort of known for cheap Wi-Fi microcontrollers. This one isn't. No news yet of when this is going to drop or be actually available, but they seem to be making a bit of a splash about it. So yeah, it's quite interesting. There's been some talk about why they've not got Wi-Fi on this. My guess is that Wi-Fi being on die is actually quite closely tied to the die process. It sounds like they've gone to a smaller die fab and probably have to change their Wi-Fi design. That's my best guess. Taking any suggestions. Their C6 is also available now. This is a single core, I think it's a single core RISC-V with a ULP as well. That's their term for a low power processor. It has Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. This one's sort of meant to be the cheap and cheerful RISC-V chip. And the IDF5 is out. There is a long list of breaking changes. They've taken the opportunity to clean up a few things. They've added a few features, but yeah, lots of changes. It's still pretty shaky at the moment, it seems, from what we can tell. I don't think we're publishing any. Have we tried building against? Do you know if we tried building against SVF5? I haven't. Yeah.
Have you bought one yet?
I haven't bought one yet, no.
That's the reason people have not tried them.
Yeah, I'll get there. The Inky frame, I didn't have time to post the links here, but check out Pomerani's Inky frame if you're interested in. It's a, I can't remember how many colors, but it's a multicolor e-ink device. 4 inches, looks beautiful. Take a check it out. I thought I'd talk quickly about Monocle, and I've got a few more links to look at later, but Damien, Jim and I actually had a chat with the Monocle folks. They've released this device, which is like a do-it-yourself hacker augmented reality monocle. They've got some interesting things to make. It's a 640 by 400 display, appear like it's in front of your eye when you hold the monocle up. They're intending to put this, attach it to glasses and that kind of thing. Kind of at the DIY stage, and they're trying to figure out what to do with this at this stage. So they've built an interesting platform to build on. The reason it was of interest to us is they're advertising MicroPython as their primary way of developing for this. So they've gotten Bluetooth access. There's a little Nordic chip on this thing. They've got an FPGA in this as well. The FPGA drives the little display, so you can get the kind of throughput you need out of it. And there's also a little 5 megapixel camera. So, and they're looking at improving these specs over time, but this is sort of the first drop of hardware, and they're sort of testing the waters. So if you're interested, it's a pretty interesting little bit of hardware. I haven't seen many things like it. So, and they've done an excellent job with the MicroPython port. So,
what's its base processor?
It's a Nordic 52832. Is that right? 832.
Yeah,
I always get those numbers confused.
No,
It's not the 840, which is what I was hoping for. Yeah. So it's quite a small MicroPython port, but I guess they're expecting to get a lot of performance out of the FPGA. And in fact, they've already built a lot into the FPGA that is controllable from the microcontroller. So, for example, they've got a way of connecting the camera to the display, so you can actually have like the camera appear projected on the display, which is quite interesting.
Augmented reality style.
Yeah. I'm not sure what to do with this yet, but I think it's really interesting seeing people like experiment with this kind of stuff. Box in minutes. UGit or MicroGit, I'm not sure what they, I guess it's MicroGit. This is a tool, I've got their site open and have a look in the browser in a second, but the idea of this is that you can synchronize a Git repository with a Wi-Fi connected device, so ESP32 or such stuff. So they've got a library in MicroPython. You can say, hey, sync now, and then it'll go grab the latest code and sync it across. Interesting way to do over-the-air updates. Doesn't support updating the MicroPython firmware, but it does support updating the code. Pinout, I just mentioned this because something I was playing with a couple of weeks ago. The Pico Zero library, which we've talked about before, has this. I saw this maybe a few weeks ago, where they've added a pinout method. So it just gives you a pinout in MicroPython if you've got the Pico Zero library installed. So that's for the Raspberry Pi. Quite neat. Then I saw that someone else had done this in like a bash script. So if you just got access to a command line, you can easily type a bash script just to spit it out, so it's a quick reference. And it got me thinking, we can do this in MicroPython. It supports Unicode, as we were discussing last time. And so I made this one up for the tiny Pico. And this actually works and can be printed out from MicroPython or from regular Python. And it was modeled on the actual pinout that Xeon provided. So you'll see that the colors are as close as I can get them. It's not too bad. I'm lacking a little bit of detail on the device, but this takes up something like 3 or so K, and it would be easy to bake that in as a frozen module and just have it on hand. So I thought that was kind of a neat idea and something that sort of suits the rapid development in MicroPython, kind of that mentality. So yeah, I might try it for a couple of other ports as well. Projects. I just want to mention that Kevin Buckley has just been churning out stuff. Kevin, I'm sure you'll watch this later. It's almost hard to keep up with him. He's had like a Guitar Hero thing with the Pimoroni Galactic Unicorn, which is really cool to see it animate. He's been churning out robots. He's been churning out cyber glasses. He's got the video series of MicroPython that he released at the end of last year. He's just doing an amazing amount of work in that space, which is great. Great work, Kevin. And quickly before I drop into a couple of other links, our own Andy Piper, who's often joins us from the UK, was interviewed by Addy Grand and had like a 1 hour talk about career and MicroPython maker culture. Well worth a listen. Just today, there was it was like an academic paper published about performance evaluation, comparing C and C++ and MicroPython, Rust, and TinyGo. And MicroPython came out terribly, and it was just really odd the way they had compared it, because they had written a lot of performance critical code, like they were generating CRC32s and SHA-256s and then comparing them on the different platforms. But they actually wrote it in Python code, and we're using that to evaluate the performance. And it's just not what you would do. You would normally put that code in C and put it behind a MicroPython API. So it's fine to compare the interpreter for performance, but then they sort of came to the conclusion saying MicroPython is probably not suitable for embedded development where performance is a concern. It's like, no, you missed the point here. That's not a valid performance.
Did they at least utilize like native and all of the tricks of the trade?
No native, no Viper, nothing, just pure Python.
That's just rude at that point.
It was a bit rude. I'm just reading it, it's just like, yeah, I'll show you.
All the old school umbrella who just throw stones for the sake of it.
Yeah. But they'd even written a CRC32 method in Python, even when there's go get a built-in to do exactly that. So they could have actually compared the built-in performance, which would have been a useful thing to do. Yeah. So I don't know, maybe we have to make a reply. Some Bob guy online, I don't know, I couldn't for the life of me find his surname. So if anyone knows Bob's surname, he wrote a really interesting article on his efforts about multi-thread coding with the Pico. There's a few gotchas doing so, and he sort of spelled them out. It's pretty good. Final thoughts. We'll have a look at this later if it's open, but there's a YouTube that was published about self-soldering boards. It's not MicroPython related, but well worth a watch. The concept is that one of the layers in the board, you make it a squiggly giant resistor basically, and then apply power to it after you've solder pasted all your devices onto it, and it just self-solders. Brilliant idea, really well executed. Fascinating to watch it, really impressive stuff. There's also, a couple of months ago, we saw there was a Lego brick with a screen embedded in it. I don't know if you've ever seen this. We'll have a look at the video in a moment. But the guy who built this little Lego brick, just to recap, it had an STM32 in there with a tiny little display into a standard Lego brick that he'd also made a mold for it and put some polyurethane or whatever it was inside it. But it actually worked. You could power it from the bottom, and actually had all the space designs coming through. It looked like it was a legitimate Lego brick. It was amazing. We went through a whole video on how he built it and everything. It's really good to look at. So got a bunch of other tickets. Who uses cheers too much? In fact, we'll start from the bottom because it's interesting. Self-soldering circuits. We won't go through the whole.
Make a circuit that can solder itself by just connecting two wires to it. And I want to use the same circuit to solder other PCBs like it in their 3D prep way. I really like to compare ISO soldering with amazing.
We won't watch the whole lot, but you get the idea. This is the screen that I was talking about. It's a Lego brick. Now, if you look at that carefully, he's built that Lego brick. He's put a display behind it, and there's an STM, tiny little STM sitting in behind it, and this animates and just looks utterly gorgeous. But the video it's linked to here actually goes through the whole process of how he built a mold for it, all of the code for it, the PCBs, how they're actually little jigsaw puzzles so you can get all the bits connected to it. It's just a wonderful thing to look at. We talked about Monaco before. This is a breakdown of their, that's what their board looks like. But I guess I wanted to just quickly show the MicroPython APIs, which are quite documented. So they've got a BLE web REPL. You can connect to it over BLE. That's basically just the Nordic UART service. And then they've got references for a whole bunch of things, including camera, display, and all the rest of it. And they're pretty much as you would expect. Yeah. So go check that out. There's a whole bunch more stuff here. I'm not sure how much we should go through, but I wanted to cover at least two, sort of a spate of tools that have come out. One of them was from Jean-Christophe Boss, which is an ESP32 based IDE, but it's all based around MicroPython development, and it was something he'd sort of done personally, I think, and then decided to release it. It's cross-platform, Mac, Linux, and maybe not Linux, Mac and Windows at least. I haven't had a chance to run it yet, but for those that want a gentle introduction to MicroPython and MicroPython development, it might be useful. And there's also MP Bridge, which was an effort to create a tool to synchronize a file system to your device. So what it would do is it would watch for changes on your PC file system, and when it sees them for devices that you're trying to sync to your device, it would sync them in the background. It'd be nice to get that feature into MP Remote, I think would be a goal. Would that be a possible thing, Damien? If you're there still.
To get, I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's meant to be watching a regular PC file system and then copying files across in the background when they change. Not sure if that's something we want to support or, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we can have some plug-in system for MP Remote where you can have these kind of additions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because for some people, this really suits their style of development. I'm not sure who those people are, but
yeah. Well, I mean, we do want to facilitate like efficient workflow, and yeah, MP Remote is not. It doesn't have constraints like running on a microcontroller, so we can have lots of features, but yeah, at the same time, we don't want to have so many different features that people get confused and don't know what to do. So we can see how this goes, see how many people use this. If it gets good traction and people like it, then yeah, I mean, well, and this person can keep developing it really. But I think we just see how things go really. Yeah, like I don't want to just steal the idea and implement it, and then this person.
No, it's more that I'd sort of suggested that it probably should be an MP remote if anywhere, and I was just wondering, I guess, if there's any inherent problem or philosophical issue with putting such a feature in. So.
Yeah, well, I think there's a few things to think about, but it could definitely be if it's if everything lines up.
Yep.
Sometime back when I first did MP remote manifest sort of command, the way I had that running was that you'd be specifying all the files on your computer that you want in your manifest. So that sort of working into the new way of doing apps with a manifest. An MP remote would be watching that manifest file, and anytime you Control D on the device, it would sort of auto rescan for any local changes and upload just the changes. So it was kind of doing that sync thing, but the sync and automatically syncing any new changes on the PC that was triggered by a microcontroller reset, so that you sort of knew when it was going to happen, that it would happen at a safe time, which meant it could also run in the background. So if you have changed a lot, then it'll be a bit of a slow sync, but it was still, when you run MP remote, it would sync the whole lot, copy it every time, but then over on the soft reboots, it would only upload changes. So it was pretty quick. But I haven't even looked at updating that manifest PR since all the rest of the MP remote stuff's happened recently.
Yeah.
I sort of need to think back with, and Jim took a few things from that PR anyway in all the new work.
So it wouldn't take much to add watch code to that.
Well, it depends
Sorry.
when.
Yeah.
I guess the problem.
If you add watch as the trigger, and then fired up whatever you've done already.
Yeah, I guess the real question I had, especially watching on the Linux side's trivial, it's easy. It's really not that hard.
Similar.
But
They're all similar.
yeah, you can't copy files over MP remote while an application is actively running on the chip. Like the chip needs to be sitting at REPL for you to be able to do things like so. I guess that's why I built it to happen on soft reboot, because you generally need to do that to reload changes anyway, and it leaves then the device in a consistent state to force it to copy. And I've figured out I didn't actually need to use any of the actual iNotify or file system hooks to do it. It was just on that reboot, it scan through all the files quickly, look at the modification date. If it's newer than last time we synced, then copy that file.
Well, we can talk about it. Just to quickly revisit the microgit. This is the concept is you literally just have a Git repository somewhere. You can also tell it to ignore files. Import on the device. You go import microgit, aggregate.backup to back up your files that are on the device, and then just pull all. Just do it in the background. It's great.
Quick question: ULab or microlab? It is a U, not a mu.
Yeah,
maybe it is just UGit.
Well, it does say, yeah. Okay. So yeah, don't know. Sure. We're looking at Maclear's stuff before.
Declare clear of Davies Ephemerally Galactic Uniform.
Play with MicroPython.
You get the idea. I have one more thing to show. Lawrence. Here is the word. Come on. Lawrence sent me this late last night. I was bleary-eyed. I'm sorry, Lawrence, if I didn't make much sense when I was responding. But just quickly. this is the robot that Lawrence suggests we make. Very few parts, really. He did mention to try not to make it topple off the table like he does, but if we want to build that, we'll put this into some sort of more useful instruction. But he's been kind enough to send through photos of like how you construct this, all the devices that we've already got here. And there's also code as well. And code was quite short, yeah, Lawrence. That's the entire code for a self-balancing robot that moves about under your own control. So, cool.
Yeah, and I'm still cleaning up that code, but I thought I'd send it in case you wanted to play with it at the meeting. Since then, I've sort of put it into a class, since we now support multi-file projects in Pybricks as well, so that we can have one balancer class and use it across different shaped balancers, including the ball balancer as well.
Oh, cool.
But this is kind of a work in progress that you can actually play with, but we'll put a proper tutorial up eventually.
Yep, I'll definitely have one built and ready to go next time. I just didn't have enough time last night. Yeah. What else did I have? There's also some information about a CubeSat, which I'm trying to get a handle on. I only found out about it today, but I got an email from David at Hello College, and he'd emailed some of the Adafruit folks, but it's a student project where he's been building a CubeSat. So there's a picture of this that's available. I don't know if I've got it here in the email. Oh yeah, there it is. So that's the board, Raspberry Pi Pico based, but yeah, they're wanting to send this into space, and so I'll try and digest that and put it, yeah, give you a bit more information next time. But it's really interesting to see MicroPython being used for that purpose. And I think I'm now getting close to the end of what we should cover. I think that's enough. I'm just okay. Because it's getting late. We need pizza. So I'll leave the video feed open for folks who want to stick around and ask questions. We'll be here for a while longer. We've got a few new faces here today, so we'll try and get them introduced to MicroPython. Yeah. David Whale, Wizard. Yes, he's a micro wizard. It's true. And it is PyPico based Carlos. Yep. I'm sorry if I missed questions in the background. I'll have to get to that in a sec. I'm going to start talking. Is there any other questions or comments?
Those slides that you are available to download?
Yes, I will. Yes, they will be. Yep, I'll publish them. Twitter, Discord, somewhere where you can find them. Yeah. Yeah. This will also be video. The video will also be available, so we'll publish that in Discord. Yeah. Should mention too, Damien was great and added some of the. In the last couple of months, we've added Discord and discussions. We've consolidated some of our communication systems. They're now available on the front page of micropython.org. So there's quick links to get to those now. So that's right. Thanks, Damien, for doing that. We appreciate it.
It's all right.
Anything else? Cool. All right. Thanks for listening, folks.
Thanks, Matt. Thank you as usual.
Sorry, as late as usual, but quite a bit of ground. There's just so much